All right, let's do it. And we're live.
Okay, we're live. Brilliant. Get out my phone. Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cut the Crap with Saberi. And my guest today is the wonderful Mayookh Bhaumik. And we're here to obviously do the usual, cut the crap, and speak about a few things that we're both very passionate about, and hopefully have a nice conversation on things that this is what I always maintain, things that don't always get spoken about as much. Just let us know that you can hear us. That would be great. And
yeah. Well, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you too. As long as our audience can hear us, then that's brilliant. So how's the lockdown going for you?
Well, for me, it's going okay because I'm still doing stuff, and it's the whole being stuck at home, and I'm a very personally, I need to get paid to go out, my house. This is like, I feel like I'm going out, for free. I love staying home is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have the option to go out and meet people and do things. So I guess mild cabin fever kind of a situation, but
but otherwise pretty much.
I have to say, because I'm teaching online for the first time, never done that before. That's going well.
And we'll talk about that a little bit. So that'll be
it's great. It's great actually. I mean, I was just talking to my mom the other day, and I was just telling her that just imagine what would happen if this lockdown in our lives happened like 20 years ago, before the internet and before smartphones and laptops and all that stuff. That would have been a real difficulty because in this day and age, we are actually more connected with people through technology anyway. Like since Facebook has come up, I mean, face to face happens so much less generally in life, whether even lockdown or no lockdown, people are constantly hiding behind their phones.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess this is the perks of lockdown, because I'm able to communicate with so many of you through this show. I'm communicating with so many people that I wouldn't maybe usually communicate with, and which is great, and have conversations with. So I'm having from that side of things, it's been really good for me and a learning experience to speak to so many people.
I mean, we've never really met before.
No,
right?
we've never met.
This is what finally like brought us together and gave us an opportunity to change at this level. Like we've had phone conversations.
We've spoken, we've spoken on the phone and stuff, but we haven't really met face to face and had this kind of conversation before. So that's great.
Right. Hey, listen, I want to thank you for bringing me on the show. I think this show that you're doing is really cool. I think it's you're doing something that's very necessary. It really needs to be done.
Thank you.
Giving us an opportunity to talk about things that we're passionate about, that we feel from inside as musicians and artists. So for all of those who are watching from either my page or anywhere, follow Saberi Misra. She's like the next thing.
Oh, thank you. That's so wonderful of you. Thank you. Thank you for coming and agreeing to cut the crap. Because I think it's also
very... Love the title.
Thanks. I mean, when I kind of thought about giving it this name, with the whole kind of Indian classical music and dance scenario, are people going to like this name? There's the word crap in it. Are people going to go all crappy over the name, and they're going to be like, oh God, she's calling it cut the crap. Oh shit. So I was like, oh well.
In those 3 words, you kind of define I've been following your show, so I know the direction you go in, and cut the crap is so perfect. It's so it's very articulate in terms of what you're trying to express through the show. So it's very appropriate. And I think it's a really attractive title. Like, if we were to say, Indian classical music and dance by Saberi Misra, nobody cares. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to firstly, I want to make it interesting. So yeah, the title kind of is like, whoa, like what's going to happen on this thing? And
Exactly.
the second thing is, it's literally what I hope to do on the show is talk about the real stuff, talk about the issues, and
Yep.
hopefully come up with things that will inspire other people to speak about it as well. So that's the whole point of this show. But let's get into the real stuff. So tell me, through your music, through whatever you do, what is the kind of goal in your life? What do you hope to achieve with your music? This is the first thing I ask everyone.
Getting famous and making a lot of money.
Okay, cool, yeah. Brilliant. There we go. We're cutting the crap already.
Cutting the crap, yeah, from the get-go. What purpose of doing music for me? I mean, look, for me, music is it's not my profession. It's my life, basically. It's not what I do. It's who I am. It's my identity in every sense. It also happens to be my profession because I suck at everything else. And no, really, I mean, I've never been able to like get a job or do any kind of a business or anything. Not that I'm great at the business of being an artist or a musician itself, but this is pretty much all I know how to do. So it's kind of like, asking a fish, like, what is the purpose of you swimming? Like.
Right, I get you. Yeah.
So I was born in this, and I grew up doing this. But at the end of the day, I have thought about being relevant because if I cannot continue to be a self-indulgent person and say that, yeah, I want to do this because I'm having fun doing it. And although, I feel like if you're making music and if you're sticking to your guns and you're doing the thing, at the end of the day, if you can get by doing that, like if you can get away with it, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, that's an achievement in itself because I'm saying, without having to like sell your soul to the devil or any of that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I've seen like the more I've spread out and started doing social media and started playing around the world and seen how started getting a little bit of popularity through some of my videos that have done really well. I've seen that people's lives are really affected by what we do. So we underestimate, often we underestimate the, what's the word I'm looking for? How actually relevant we are, we underestimate that because, for example, the perfect example for that right now is this whole COVID-19 quarantine lockdown period going on all over the world. People are completely dependent on entertainment more than ever before. They're at home and it's a Netflix, YouTube-driven life right now.
Right,
that's
of course.
all people are doing.
Yeah.
And the sad part of that is that with the problems in the economy that's going on, businesses are not turning over what they're supposed to, and they have so much of overhead and all that stuff. And when this comes back to whatever normalcy we can expect in the near future, we're anticipating that the first funding, as always, that's going to get cut is the arts funding.
The arts funding.
But you'll be surprised. Like, it's true. We're not doctors or policemen or, medical professionals or the people in the front lines. We're not one of those. But for all the people that are staying home and trying to get by in terms of their lives and in terms of their mental health and all of that, they are so much dependent on entertainment. And we actually are, I feel like we are playing a part in, bringing that to them. And I started this thing called the Lockdown Tabla series. And just a few days ago, collectively, the videos that I've done in this one have hit 1 million views on Facebook without any promotion, without me paying, buying likes or whatever people do. So I've the purpose of my doing music, I guess, apart from the fact that there's nothing else I can do, is being like a messenger of happiness, like bringing a smile to someone's face.
Yeah, I mean that. Firstly, that's probably the first guest that said that, and secondly, I want to speak about, I want to kind of take that into the question that I'm going to ask you, which
Okay,
is,
but what is before that? What is
yeah,
what's your answer to the same question? Like, why
my
do you?
my answer to it, my answer to it is that for me, it's kind of on the same lines as yours. I aspire to be a great dancer, a great musician, a great artist. And for me, there's a very specific distinction between a musician becoming a great dancer or a musician and becoming an artist.
Ah,
I
what's
really,
that?
personally, I really separate those two.
Mhm.
Because for me, a good musician or a good dancer is just how well they're doing that particular art form, or that's fine, that's great, and that comes with riyaz and sadhana and all of that, all of those things that we all speak about and we all hear our gurus speak about, whatnot. But I think for me, becoming an artist is that one step ahead thing for me, because once you become an artist, you have responsibilities,
Exactly.
and your responsibility isn't just to become a great kathak dancer, for yourself or for the audience. It's
Absolutely.
also, once I'm done with my performance on stage, how am I touching somebody else's life, or what am I doing to make this community stronger?
Yeah.
um, and so that's exactly why, actually, it comes back to cut the crap, because this is exactly why I'm doing cut the crap, because I
Right.
don't think dancing well is enough for me to become a dancer. That'll really, really make me proud and make my parents proud and make my guru proud, and all of that will happen, and maybe I'll get a lot of people watching my dance and being like, wow, she's so good. But
Yeah.
other than that, are people going to say, oh my god, Saberi's made such a big difference in the Indian classical music and dance community? And
Sure.
that's my ultimate goal. People will look back and be like, Saberi has made a serious difference, and that might be 50 years later, but I want that to happen. Like,
Absolutely.
if that happens, I'll feel like, fine, I've really achieved something in my life. So yeah, doing my art well,
Hmm.
but then with that, being able to make a difference and putting my opinions forward and listening to other people's opinions and working with that to make a difference. I think
Well,
that,
I think you're already well on your way to doing that. I mean, the way you're expressing your opinions and the initiative that you're taking simply by doing this cut the crap thing, I think you're definitely on that journey for sure. You know,
thank you. I mean, but yeah, and thank you for asking as well. Thank you for asking me what I
hey, we're not going to do an interview, man. That's not
oh,
fair, right? I'll
we're
interview you.
already
We'll
getting
interview each other. You know.
great. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. This is exactly what's necessary. I'm already going to take a question, because there's a massive question, but I just want to take one now, because maybe
Sure.
this is, or maybe is it related to this? He's Chayan Chattaraj says,
Hmm.
he's based in the UK. He's actually a student of my father.
Oh,
He's saying, while composing for a movie, are you allowed to bring your own creativity into the music, or do you feel restricted by the demands of the director? If you are caught in such a situation, what are the risks of budging to mediocrity? Do you think there is a push or public demand towards mediocrity that's affecting many musicians? Wow, that's a heavy question.
that's a fantastic question. Thank
That's
you,
a
Chad.
really good question. Yeah.
Thank you, Chad. Well, it's a little of both, um, because there are two aspects to being. Um, you know, I've always said that being a composer and being a tabla player, in both situations, I'm basically an accompanist. You know,
Mm,
I don't I don't drive either one of them, but I enhance. That is my job.
mm,
And being a film composer, first of all, you have to understand that when you're composing music for film, that subject, music for film,
mm.
is not a subject of music. It's a subject of cinema.
Right.
The outer universal set over there is cinema, and
Mm,
music is one of the elements that is carrying forward the storytelling, the unfolding of the narrative, and there is that one magical element about music that um, that sort of makes that fine division between real life and cinema. Um, so, for example, like you sometimes hear a really cheesy dialogue happening where a guy makes this romantic thing and proposes to a girl, whatever. I've imagined the reason that doesn't work for me is because I don't have a score. when I'm doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like if I do that in real life, I'll probably get slapped because like I don't have the violins and the cellos going. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's a very important thing. But you know, at the same time, I've scored about 28 feature films now, and the fun part is that when I collaborate with someone now, they sort of have an idea about what kind of music I make and how much I can expand. And they sort of want my creativity and my ideas to come on board because cinema is a very collaborative art form. And so there are some people who are like, no, I want this, and this. But those people tend to not come and hire me simply because like, you know, if you were to hire, let's say, somebody like Ustad Rashid Khan to sing a song, as a composer, I would give him the song and then I would just let him do his thing because that's why I want him.
That's why you want him.
Because yeah, I want what he's gonna bring on board as part of my thing. And at the end of the day, like if I do something to improve your project, then any open-minded, wise person should, you know, welcome that. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, there are restrictions. Of course, there are restrictions because there's a huge limitation with time because we deal with very specific time counts. Like a scene will be 24 seconds and 6 frames. One frame is 1/24th of a second.
Right.
So that's how specific the timing has to be, and it's very tricky to like get that right sometimes because like, especially when you have movement in the camera and a lot of cuts in between, and they're syncing, like, you know, like something happens and the woman walks out the door and slams the door. The minute she slams the door, there's that bam, and then the music has to rise from there. Now, musically making those contours happen very specifically is very, very difficult.
Very difficult.
It's a technical thing. It's not, you know, it's not difficult once you start doing it, but I'm just saying it's not a very musical thing. It's a very, very edit timeline, frame to frame, dramatic statements, bold gestures, and laying it back. And the other thing is the use of silence, which is like, you know, a great composer is a composer who knows where not to put music, you know? They're good composers, and you could be a really good composer, but you may not be a great film composer simply because you know when to lay out.
Right,
you know?
right.
That's why I've gotten into sound design as well. And I work hand in hand with my sound designers, and it's a collaboration between us because the audio in film is made up of effects, ambience, and sync effects, Foley. That chapter, then the music, and then primarily the dialogue. So we have to get all of these things to merge in together and work in unison. So, but that's a really great question. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do feel restricted because like a director wants something really specific. But at the end of the day, I have learned that the director is the captain of the ship. It's his vision, it's his project. He sees it a certain way, and if I'm not being able to match it, he's, you know, disagreeing with me for some reason, then I am getting in the way with his vision, and that is something as a job description that I'm not allowed to do.
Thank you for that. And that's a whole, I mean, this is a whole different world of composing and composing for films.
Absolutely.
And the whole,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
a completely different art form. Completely different art form. I mean, I've been doing a lot of ad work, like advertising jingles and stuff like that. That's a whole different world in itself.
Yeah.
That there you have to make the thing happen in like 30 seconds, you know? And
but
a film is like a 2-hour canvas. You have space to explore everything.
Right.
But here, like 30 seconds, it has to be catchy. It has to be a brain worm, which is going to get stuck in people's heads. Even if they hate the tune, they're going to have to keep singing it, you know, like.
It also has to catch the sentiment of what they're trying to, you know, publicize or what they're marketing and all of that.
And it has to, you know, tie in with the brand and you know, all of that stuff. So that in itself is another whole chapter of doing things. But it's fun. I mean, it's tremendous fun.
Yeah.
It's I have to say, like, you know, that's why I got so drawn to it. Like I got a project, I did well, so I got other projects, and then that one thing led to another. But it's just like it's a blessing because I've learned so much as a composer. The stuff that I've learned as a composer have reflected so much in the way that I play as a tabla player.
Yeah,
Well.
I mean, we'll get into that because that's very, very important, and how that's affected you as a tabla player, how that's changed your music as an Indian classical tabla player.
Sure.
But thank you so much for that question. That was a really, really
yes. Thank you, Chad.
wonderful
That's a
question.
great question.
I wanted to ask you about when we were speaking about what we see ourselves achieving with our music, just to carry on with that point. I've seen that a lot of people are, especially those who grow up in these kind of atmospheres of Indian classical music and dance, from a very early age, like you and I have. Once we decide that we're going to make this our profession and this is what we're going to do, this is what we love, this is our passion, but this is also our profession. We have a lot of people around us who tell us, don't talk much, just keep doing your work, don't say a lot of things, be a bit more diplomatic with how you say things. And I'm saying that because I've faced that. I've had a lot of people.
Sure, you have.
Yeah, and I guess most people say it because they want good for me, because they don't want people to think I'm, I don't know, I talk too much or I'm arrogant or whatever. But I have seen also that has led to musicians and artists having very less personalities. And by that, what I mean is that they may have skill in what they're doing, but when it comes to speaking and talking about issues that are broader than music, they find it very difficult to do that because they haven't been in that discipline of speaking about issues that matter. Because at the end of the day, before we are musicians or artists, we're human beings, and there are some things that we as artists, I think we should speak about, regardless of how famous or not famous or good or bad musicians that we are. And so I just want to ask you, how much of this did you face while you were growing up when you decided that you wanted to be a musician? How much of speaking out hindered your profession, or did it just
very much? I mean, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I've burned so many bridges, and I've just for this, been labeled as arrogant or yeah, he's from a different world. And it's not just speaking out, like it's everything. The fact that I'm a film composer and I wanted to do that, I don't really know how being a film composer can take away from you being a tabla player or a classical artist, because the greats and the people that I've followed all my life have done that. I've studied with Sabir Khan, who's an excellent ghazal singer and ghazal composer and music director. Then I studied with Zakirji. I'm studying with him, and he's composed for several films and done all kinds of things that doesn't take away from what he is. And but our community I think our community in the Indian classical circuit is such that, first of all, they think the world, a lot of them, and when I say they, I'm talking about a majority. I'm not saying that there are not exceptions. So I want to clarify that. Like,
of course,
don't take that personally. And if you're one of them, you'll know. So
exactly.
Okay, this is going to be a really candid conversation. I'm just
no,
waiting.
It's great. Please, this is exactly what I want it to be.
Yeah. So the community happened. I find that they seem to think that the world revolves around Indian classical music, which it doesn't.
Right.
And
relate to that.
I don't think, again, the word relevance is so, for example, I don't see very many Indian classical guys and girls going to watch movies or read, or even going to watch dance performances, which are directly related to like classical music in every which way, or at art exhibitions, or like I don't see them anywhere else. This is all they do. And if you remain in this bubble and you don't understand, like you need a micro and a macro view of whatever you're doing. you need to be able to like rise above and then see where you are in this world and why people should care about what you're doing.
Exactly. Right.
So for example, like to bring it back to your point, which is like, if I'm not touching lives, then I may be a musician, but I'm certainly not an artist.
Right.
And that's a very interesting point for me, because like, it's like, I may be a great musician. It's like, okay, you may have a lot of money, all right? Suppose you have a lot of money, but unless you're giving me that money, how does it affect me?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, good for you. I mean, I'll be really happy if you turn really rich someday, but if you don't affect me as a human being, your money is no reason for me to have you in my life, unless that money is coming to me in some way. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing, I think. I may be a great musician as in a player. I may be a great singer or a vocalist or a dancer. But if I'm not touching people's lives in any way, and if I don't care about anything else that's going on in the world, then I'm irrelevant. I feel like I'm irrelevant.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? Sorry.
Sure.
I think when you spoke about, of course, you have to go and watch exhibitions. I mean, I think we should, as just musicians and artists in general, we should have an open mind to go and watch anything and everything, really. But especially when you're an Indian classical musician, this topic I bring up every time, and there's, trust me, I'm gonna cut the crap here. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, Saberi always talks about the same, topic. Well, hard luck, guys, because I'm going to talk about it again, which is that musicians don't go and watch dance. And I don't see musicians going and watching dance, and I don't see dancers going and watching music. It's both ways. As a dancer, I'm not going to be biased and be like, oh, new musicians don't go and watch dance. No, dancers.
No, I very rarely see dancers at music concerts.
Very rarely. A lot of the times, I'm the only dancer at a lot of gigs, which makes me very sad.
I mean, they'll go to like a tabla solo, because that may be relevant a little bit to the kathak. Just I'm talking about kathak dancers and tabla, but even that is rare.
Even that's rare, especially I don't know, in my generation, very rare. I don't see people. I don't see fellow kathak dancers going to music performances, and it's a really sad thing. But I just wanted to ask you, because you've had training in playing with kathak, and you've had extensive training in that, and you've played with kathak a lot. So I wanted to ask you, why do you think this is? And I've asked this to many people, and I think people find this question very difficult question to answer, because there isn't a straightforward answer. But as much as we can discuss it, why do you think that musicians don't show interest in going to watch dance? Forget about playing with dance. They don't even show interest in going to watch dance. And why don't dancers show interest in going to watch music, like tabla, sarod, sitar? Why is the issue at this stage?
I think it's pretty clear cut. I think we have a tendency of thinking that we are so departmentalized that it doesn't matter to us. Like, me as a musician going to watch a dance performance is the same thing as me as a musician going to the zoo. Like, it's not relevant to my work, or it doesn't expand my horizons in any way. And that is unfortunate, because it does, and they're so related. They're practically the same thing.
Why do you think they think it's unrelated? This is the thing. Where has this notion of dance not being relatable to musicians come to? Where has that come from? Because for me, it's a very difficult thing to understand, because I've grown up with a tabla player, a vocalist, and dance in my family, and I'm lucky that way. So I understand that I'm lucky. And there's no credit really for me. It's all my family's credit that I've grown up in a situation or an ambience like that. But so for me to understand why musicians don't go to watch a kathak performance, or why a kathak dancer doesn't go to watch a music performance, is a really difficult thing for me to grasp. And I mean, because we're having a discussion, I feel like, again, we've had this conversation before, but the whole dialogue between a tabla player and a kathak dancer these days doesn't exist. Like, I've seen tabla players putting down kathak dancers. I've been put down by tabla players. I've
Wait, in
seen
what perspective? What do you mean putting down?
So there have been such. This is very difficult to explain unless you've been in a situation like that. But I'll give an example. I've gone to a gig, and at that time, my parents would take me to Kolkata twice a year because they wanted me to keep in touch with my roots. And obviously, I took my talim from my thamma. So because thamma lives there, they didn't want me to. They wanted me to carry on with my talim and whatnot. So they'd take me twice a year to Kolkata. And after the age of like 12, 13, when I was like, yeah, this is my profession now. My dad was like, go and listen to things. You have to go to gigs. You have to go and meet people. You have to go and meet people who are doing music, and you have to go and watch people perform. So obviously I'd go to a lot of gigs with my parents. And then after that, after I finished school, I took a gap year and I went to India for 9 months. And in those 9 months, I went to a lot of gigs. And so a lot of people were kind of seeing me as this new person who's like an outsider who claims to be a kathak dancer, but a lot of them didn't really have that belief that I was a good one.
Is that because you're not from here, or?
Yeah, it's because I wasn't brought up in India, so they had this whole kind of notion of, oh, she's a kind of underestimation that she must not be that great because she.
Oh, I know about that.
You must know about that. So this is.
Yep. It's my accent that got me into trouble.
Yeah. So I went to a gig, and like people came out to have lebu cha outside, and so we came, and there were like a group of tabla players, and we're talking, and they're talking about tal and lay, and that conversation's happening, and I was listening for about 5-10 minutes, and then I said something about lay or tal, like something I can't remember exactly what, and they all looked at me like, why are you speaking in this kind of thing? Like, do you even know anything about Leo? It was that kind of attitude. And then that happened to me a few times. Like, there'll be a guy with me and he'd be spoken to more than I was. It was almost like I didn't even exist there. And then, so I was like, so there's two reasons why this is happening to me. One, because I don't live here and I've been brought up abroad. And two, because I'm a girl. And these are realities that people don't talk about.
Yeah.
Girls face this every time. And then people who are outsiders face this all the time. And we don't talk about it. But this is something I face. And I think this comes from what you were saying, because we're so enclosed in this Indian classical music fraternity. We're in this world. We're not going to go and watch anything. A bubble.
Opaque bubble. You can't even see through it.
No. So we think that, oh, I know everything, and this girl probably doesn't know shit all,
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. And I faced, and I was like, this is bad for the community. Like the fact that you feel you know everything and no one else can know any better than you.
Yeah.
That's a really bad thing. And then I realized if I say that to people, if I'm like, why are you treating me like that? They get really taken aback because they're like, whoa, no one's ever said it to me like that.
Yeah, they're not used to being spoken back to or questioned about what they do. There's one thing that I have to say, and it is what it is, and it's sad that it is like that. And I don't know if we're gonna get slack for this, but I really don't care at this point. This is a lot. It has a lot to do with Indian men, and I mean, like, this is we as a as a community, or as I don't even know what term to use here, but it's just that in a gathering, like in this gathering, this is like, how many guys were there, and were you like?
They were all guys. I was the only girl there.
You were the only girl. Okay, so there you go. I mean, that's pretty clear. And the other thing is that be surprised, like in terms of musicians and dancers, I've seen a lot of, this is my experience, and this is not me generalizing things or people, but a lot of girls get into dancing because it's kind of the thing to do, like the boy plays sports and the girl dances, and then eventually she gets married and then does like a Ravindra Jayanti video on, just telling you about things that pop
up. Classic Ravindra Jayanti video. Oh yeah.
So they do that, and then that's the only basic application of them dancing. So what happens is, dancing in that way is associated with being pretty and looking nice and being graceful and all of that. And oftentimes, I have seen this in many dancers. I have to point out that you're an exception because I've seen the way you dance, and you're definitely out there. But a lot of dancers I've seen, sadly, are not very confident or well versed with the idea of lay, which is weird because kathak is all about lay, right?
Mm.
And I mean, dancers performing and going out there doing concerts and doing all that stuff can't keep basic tal,
Yeah.
like, and I'm
Massive
saying
issue.
like basic tal. Like they've memorized certain repertoire and they know that inside out. But if I like flip the nagma on them, they'll freak out.
Yeah, exactly. They won't know which part of the ball goes where and how to make that come back to some. That adjustment does not
Yeah.
exist. Yeah,
Exactly.
they
So
wouldn't be able
it's
to do it.
because they don't know the road that they're
They don't
traveling
know.
on. They're not well versed with
Yeah.
the spacing of the matras,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and that is a very common thing. And we don't have an equivalent of that comparison to make with men because there are not as many men dancers as there are women. And I think that is for the same reason that, dance is like a girly thing to do or whatever. Yeah, so I think that's one thing. And the other thing is, I think people are just not interested, they're not interested in anything else except for exactly what it is they're doing. And that's very unfortunate. And the minute you do something else, you'll be I faced this in my life, and just from being, like you were saying, not being taken seriously because I'm from New York or whatever that is. And I can understand that. I can understand where that comes from because, like, in a certain way, when I was growing up in New York, there was no way to actually be trained properly to become a real deal tabla player, which is definitely not the case anymore. There are really amazing tabla players out there in England, in the US, in Canada. I've seen some of them, and they're really good. You'll be surprised. I mean, they'll they'll run circles around a lot of Kolkata tabla players. I've seen that. So, but when I was growing up, that was not an option. But the thing is that I didn't learn tabla in New York with some random person. I came back to India and I did exactly what everybody else is doing. Right. So I don't know why the fact that I was born in New York, or I have a certain way I speak, or I don't see how that becomes a factor.
I don't know. I'm gonna attempt to just give my opinion on that.
Please do.
I think again, it comes back to the same thing. It's the ability to ask questions that really bothers people.
Yeah.
It really bothers people. And I have seen this. People get annoyed with anyone who will ask questions. Because in this community of Indian classical music and dancers, as much as there are lovely, lovely things, and we all share wonderful music between all of us, and the music itself is so rich and has so much depth, there's a lot of depth lacking in people when it comes to communication with each other.
Yeah.
They have a lot of depth in their music, but when it comes to communicating with each other, there's a lot of depth that's lacking. And I think that's where it comes from, because we have always been taught as musicians, as artists, that, never question. Just do what's happening.
Can I tell you a couple of questions that I got into a lot of trouble for?
Yes, please do. Yeah. Let's talk about that. What are the questions you got in trouble for?
They just hate my guts. Okay. So, and, I've asked this question to many really well-known people, and none of them have been able to give me a satisfactory answer.
Okay.
So, okay.
Let's
so
hear
it started with, I have to tell you, this is going to be so much fun. Okay. I hope this video doesn't get blocked, but no. Okay. So rag Hamsadhwani, right?
Yes.
It's a really, really bright rag. Okay, and it's I love that rag, and but it's played in the evening.
Mm.
Okay, so from that point, I started asking, what is the basis of rags being associated with time
Certain
and
times of the day.
times of day, and what is the is there any basis to this, or is there? I mean, because we follow it so strictly, like if if it goes past like 10 in the morning, you can no longer sing Bilas Kanitori. You have to go into the sarangs and do that. Okay, I understand. Like it's associatively, I understand.
Right,
but like,
right,
why
right.
though?
Why? Right. Yeah.
Then I got all these weird answers, as in, there is a connection between the atmosphere and the position of the sun and the notes that are happening, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, this is sounding like astrology to me. You know what I'm saying? Like you wear a little stone on your finger and that's supposed to affect the movement or whatever. I mean, is there any basis? Like, can you explain to me? Not one answer. And I got into conversations like this, and then I was told that, you should learn more and you should study more before you talk about this stuff, because like this is really
That's my favorite answer.
exactly.
I love that answer.
So I was like, so this basically means you don't have an answer, is what you're saying, right?
But surely what boggles my mind is, if I'm asking you a question, that means I want to learn. And that's why I'm asking it.
Yeah.
So
But
why
no,
are you answering back to me by saying
the answer? If they don't have the answer, their answer is that you shouldn't be asking the question. And telling you you're being arrogant, or you're being whatever. I said, no, I'm not. I'm trying to, I didn't want to like intimidate you or embarrass you or anything. I'm just saying that let's bring in. And he was like, if you sing Bhairavi or if you sing Tori, automatically you feel like the sun is rising. I was like, yeah, because I've been told.
Yeah, right. You're being conditioned. Yeah.
So it's
Also,
completely associative. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I love listening to Hamsadhwani. It brightens up my day. It really does. And then there was this question about, Komal Re and Komal Dha being part, all these really accidental notes and minor notes being part of morning runs. I was like, not true, because Puri Dhanasri is an evening rag.
Right.
So is Shri and a late afternoon or early evening rag. So all your.
But I understand, because this, I mean, you just gave an example of a question. I'll give you the latest criticism because of my show, right, that I've heard. And if I may cut the crap now, there's a few of those people watching. So if you're listening, then but but I'm really glad that you're watching it, even though you don't like my show. But there we go. What's happening? The criticism that I got.
The people who are watching from this.
I'll let you know afterwards. But what they said about my show was that, it's too negative, and we're just talking about the negative stuff, and it's just going in with the kind of like victim mindset. And to those people, I'd just like to say that firstly, I don't mind getting these criticisms. I'm really happy that you have enough time to criticize it, because that just means that I can work towards making it better, A. And B, I think, on a serious note, these conversations need to happen, because a community or anything will only evolve or get better if conversations are had about topics that need, I don't know, discussions, right? If I'm going to go on stage, let's look at it this way. If I go on stage and I perform today and I come off stage and my parents are like, oh, you were great today. You were fantastic. There's nothing to improve. There's nothing at all. I'm going to be like, oh, great. That's it. That's that. I'm done there.
Yeah.
So if we are encouraged so much to criticize each other's art form, why are we not encouraged to criticize the system that we're a part of? Why are we not encouraged to speak about the problems and the issues of the society and the community that we're living in? I look at Mayookh Bhaumik as being somebody who is in the same community as me. And I
Yeah.
should be able to sit with Mayookh Bhaumik and have constructive conversations on how to make this community a better place. Yes,
Yeah.
me alone, I can probably not do a whole lot in a 1 hour conversation, but I'm pretty sure if I keep having these conversations with people, it'll stick in some people's minds and it'll
Yeah,
make some kind
you're
of
onto
difference.
something, man. Like, you really are.
So, like, I just feel like, sometimes negative conversations, and not negative, but just analytic conversations need to happen for something to come about, some difference to come about, maybe in the next 30 years or the 40
Well,
years.
if not, then, revolution is a negative thing. There should never be revolution because people should never ask questions. I think it's our traditionalist and conformist culture.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the fact that, I've years after I knew these two actors, I found out that Angelina Jolie is John Voight's daughter. I had no idea about that. And there was never any publicity about it. There was never any. So and this is not to generalize, but, I think more than anywhere in the world, our country is a place where I will listen to somebody just because his dad's good. You know what I'm saying? Like, and not just that, I'll keep listening to it, even if that person can't prove himself or, so the brand is, Pandit so-and-so or Ustad so-and-so's son, blah, blah, blah. Now, the point is, I don't think this exists anywhere else in the world. Like, do you know who Bob Dylan's son is? Or do you know who John Lennon's son is? Or Michael Jackson's daughter? Like, would you buy that album just because she's his daughter? Or I'm not saying that they don't have any kind of advantage over, the rest of them, but the audience is what I'm talking about. Like, if tomorrow Michael Jackson's daughter comes up with a lousy album, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It's over for her.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I definitely think so.
Janet Jackson is not a star because she's Michael Jackson's sister. She was a good pop artist, and then she was also Michael Jackson's sister.
She was also Michael Jackson's sister. Yeah.
So that added on, but first so that, I think, tradition, whenever you label something as tradition. So coming back to that rag and time of day thing, it was like, when Tansen sang, this happened, and it rained, and then he lit fire with Deepak, and then he extinguished the fire with the Malar. I'm like, okay, was it monsoon then? Because I've an experience with a concert where Shahid Parvezi was playing Miyati Malar, and it started pouring. So then, is Shahid Bhai also somebody who can control nature with his sitar? To that extent? And if not, no, how can you say that? Like, well, why not though? Like, why is it different, or why is it more credible for Mia Dansen and not for him? I mean, we have to agree that he's a monster of a player.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I mean, and do we have any witnesses in terms of what happened when he actually sang? So I think the other problem in this respect is the fact that our documentation of our history, because we have what is known as a Gurumukhi Vidya, right? We learn it from master to student. I think information has been distorted to the point where we really have no idea what it was when it began. Because if you look at families and the family trees, everybody's family leads back to Tansen somehow. And then I'm just like, dude, how many kids does this guy have? Like, how could he have, and I'm serious, man. Like, that's where it ends up. And it's just, so I think it's the mentality of saying that, we have this in politics as well. Jawaharlal Nehru, therefore Indira Gandhi, therefore Rajiv Gandhi, therefore Rahul Gandhi. Like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I think it's
very interesting. Yeah. I'm glad we addressed this point though, because I just feel like what we started with, asking questions is a taboo. Like that in itself, you asking like, why is something like this, is something that people don't like. And I think slowly that has to change. It will be a slow change, but hopefully it will, because firstly, that builds personality. That builds your opinion. It will build your opinion. You will build your own judgments, and you won't just be doing something because somebody else told you to do it.
It
And
is
I think that's really
solidify.
important.
I think it's going to solidify the, one thing I feel, which is a great thing about teaching, is that when I teach students now, they ask questions that I've never asked, and I'm put on the spot for the answer. Like, I don't know because I haven't thought of it, and I've always assumed something. And when I get questioned, it actually it strengthens my hold on the subject and my knowledge. So I think it's very healthy to ask questions. After a point, I'm not saying like, when a teacher is teaching me dada, tete, dada, tunna, why should I play dada, tete, dada?
Yeah.
There's a state when you have to learn and learn and learn and not ask any questions. But after a point, when you have developed to a certain thing, if you don't ask questions, you never really know. And that's why I don't think this discussion is destructive in any way. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. It's a very constructive discussion because we are questioning things, and the only way. Look, Indian classical music is my life, okay, and I'm going to go through every shred of evidence and every little thing to find out what more there is, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing that. So unfortunately, if you're watching and you feel like we're babbling about meaningless stuff, then please stop watching. And is that there will be a time when you're going to have to like question these things yourself. So in that case, please keep watching.
The other thing I want to say to the viewers, because I think it's important, is and just like in this discussion between you and I, there will always be people who will think that you're not doing the right thing if you're asking questions. There's always going to be people like that, because if you're asking questions, it means you're challenging someone. And like, especially with me, I've seen it with me, obviously, through my limited experience that I've had. People really feel that, you're asking so many questions. Are you going to be able to answer my questions? And I'm always like, maybe I won't be able to, but
probably not.
I should have the guts to say, I don't know. Like, even that takes a lot of guts to be like, you've asked me a question and I'm like, you know what? I actually don't know the answer to this. Let me come back to you because I need to learn about it. Yeah. Why are we as artists not able to do that? This is the other thing that I see a lot. People wanting to know everything and wanting to show people that they know everything. That's not necessary. Like, I'm a dancer, but that doesn't mean I'm going to know everything about dance. It doesn't mean that. So if you ask me a question, the confidence and security is in saying, you know what, I actually don't know the answer to that question and I don't want to misguide you. So maybe you should ask someone else or read about it because I really don't know the answer to that. Sure. I think that's also an attitude that artists should have. And why not? That's
what I really plays a role in this. I think, our concept of, I think it's our really severely religiously driven mentality as a people, where there's a huge difference between the term teacher and the term guru. Okay, because when we put somebody up on a pedestal saying that you are God and you are unquestionable, there's your perfection and there's nothing wrong with you and there's nothing you don't know, you are omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, you know everything, you're everywhere. When we give them that stature, and I'm not don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to diminish or in any way disqualify the position that a guru holds, because I know what that is and I have worshipped and I still do worship my gurus. But the fact that when I study or when I am being mentored by Zakiji,
Mm.
he is also constantly, every now and then I find us in a conversation where I'm saying stuff and he's listening.
Mm.
And then I feel like, wait, this is not how it works. Okay, it's the other way. You're supposed to say and I'm supposed to listen, but he's not like that. That's what makes him so great. I'm just saying that when we put a person up on that pedestal and, they're like the end all and be all of everything, I feel like we're giving them that, shall we say, like we're giving them that, the air up there is a little thin, so they start getting delusional. And it's the system, the belief system that we're brought up in, like you question gods, you don't question gods, you don't question your parents, you don't question your teachers. Then who do you question? Like, if I have a question, who do I go to?
I'm not going to question somebody on the street. I'm going to question people who've inspired me to be the person I am. And if I'm not able to question those people, then there's something really wrong in the way that either I'm being brought up or I'm being taught, because I'm not able to have that relationship with that person. And I think that's why, I mean, this is the thing. I think asking questions is possibly the biggest thing. Again, what you said, after a certain point, like I can't be asking questions when I'm in year 2 learning alphabets. But, after a certain point, I should be able to ask, why something happens the way it does. And also the opposite person should be able to say, I don't know, if they don't. They don't have to feel the need to always answer my question and be like, oh yeah, I have to come up with something, an answer, because otherwise this person's going to think I'm dumb. Like, I don't think that's true.
Me if I don't know the answer to every single question that can possibly.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, this is such a great conversation in itself, because hopefully we're picking up good things that people are watching, and hopefully taking something from this. But there's a few questions, so let's address those.
Can I just add one more point to what you were saying? I feel is very important, is that when you're, it's like if when I'm doing these online classes, I felt the need to tell my students, whoever enrolled for the classes, I felt the need to tell them that, look, there are limitations to learning online. Okay, if you are an absolute beginner who doesn't know how to place your hands on a tabla, I'm probably not going to teach you, because I don't want to do that over the phone. I think that's a slightly more serious thing, and I should be able to grab your hand and position it a certain way, and then I can't do that on the screen. So the other thing is that the actual sound of what I'm playing is going to be distorted because of the fact that we're doing it over the phone.
Right.
So that is something that you need to be aware of. The other thing is that we're not going to be able to play together to make sure, like how in classes, the teacher and student will play the same thing together in unison.
Yeah.
That's something we can't do. So there are these 3 problems, and if they are going to get in the way with your learning, then I strongly advise you not to do this, because I'm not just going to say that, I can totally, completely mentor you into being a superb tabla player from scratch all over the phone.
Yeah.
I don't believe I can.
That's really important.
Yeah, and some of my students have really appreciated that. There's, we've done online classes before and nobody's mentioned that. I was like, well, that's sad, but I'm going to have to tell you that I'm not, I'm not beyond this technology. My all-encompassing glueness is not something that can, surpass the fact that we are limited here. And
thank you for that point, because that is a really, really important point. Because there's such a fine line between saying, I'm going to be able to teach you everything, online, and then those people genuinely believe that, okay, I can do it all online. So
it would be very irresponsible of me to do that.
Why the need to come face to face with anyone to learn anything?
Absolutely.
But Mohanish has asked a question, and he's asked, I am also curious to know about Mohanish Jaju, who's a tabla player.
Mohanish,
Yes, wonderful tabla player and a very good friend also. He asks, I'm also curious to know about a tabla player's cultural identity. In India, I have seen and experienced many a times that tabla players who multitask aren't really respected well For example, if the tabla player is a drummer, singer, and an event organizer, people say do one thing at a time. And secondly, tabla players who accompany kathak in India don't get as much respect, I think is what he's saying, as those who accompany classical vocal. I don't understand why.
Wow, that's a great question, Monish. Thank you for that. The fact that if you're a drummer, singer, and developer and an event organizer, people think your time and effort and focus is being divided, and you're not, and there's also a brand thing, I think, like I don't think there's a space for anybody like Prince in Indian classical music, because this man was capable of putting an entire album together by himself, playing every single instrument, writing the songs, so there's a reason he's who he is. I think that's sad, because like I've done other things. I've composed for films extensively. I've not only played with dancers, but I've composed a lot of dance music for dancers, like entire performance, or like hours of material. I've done that, and then after a point, I very seriously got into electronic music, which is something that I'm still doing. And you'd be surprised. I mean, electronic music and Indian classical music are such worlds apart in terms of the culture. Indian classical music is spirituality and discipline and this and that. God and religion, peace, and electronic music is the polar opposite of that. It's about sex and drugs and this, festivals and lasers and lights and weird-looking people. So the questions to me used to be like, what is this stuff you're doing? ये सब DJ VJ क्या है यार, बंद कर, ये क्या हो रहा है club में? Like that kind of but the thing is that you'd have to hear my music to know why these two things attracted me at the same time. And I don't know if I think the only thing is, like, in doing electronic music, I've had to learn a lot about sound and audio and how sound behaves in very deep and very intricate detail, because the thing is that when you're making electronic music, the sound that you're producing, the sound that you're making is very much a part of the music that you're making. Like a kick drum, let me just give you a small example. It might be a little technical for a lot of people, but bear with me. There are two divisions. There are two kinds of relationships that a kick drum can have with a bass. Okay? One is where the kick drum sits in the far low end and contains all the sub frequencies, stuff that's below 150 hertz. And the bass is kind of like a low mid character, and the bass is floating more in a melodic role and a groove keeping role. And the kick is what's actually holding down the low end and creating bass music. Right. And the other is where you have a sub bass, which is you have a layer of bass that's happening all the way in the low end of the audible spectrum, and then the kick is sitting in the low mid. And so these two relationships are really important. And then I ended up studying something called sidechain compression and making basses, which is what makes, when you hear like a techno beat or a house beat, the thing that makes the beat pump like that, like that, the bass is kind of like, every time the kick hits, there's a compressor on the bass that ducks the bass every time the kick is hitting. Okay, so the bass kind of emerges from below the kick until the next kick hits, and it ducks all the way again. And that creates that pulsating effect. So in studying that, I did a track called Jaja, where I made, this is my engineer actually was a huge part of that. We created the sub bass from a baya. Okay, from so there's a tabla groove going on, and then we did a parallel of the baya track, cut out all the frequencies on the tabla track, up until 150, and the only frequency you're hearing on that track is the 150, and we processed it and side changed it with the kick drum. So that is actually, the baya is actually forming the sub layer of that track. And there's no other way of creating that bass because you can't get any other instrument or synth to behave like a baya. So these things really bleed into each other, and I don't know why people would look down on you as long as you're doing something and you're doing it well. I don't think the fact that you're a drummer or a singer or an event manager or event organizer should, I mean, most artists will at some point end up becoming event organizers because that's kind of part of our thing. And if you're, I don't see how being a vocalist or being a drummer can take away from you being a tabla player. Personally, I don't see it. Now, to answer your question about kathak and vocalists, accompanists for vocalists, you're right. I mean, that is the case. People do consider, I feel like a lot of people who play with kathak don't really venture out into other things because, like we were discussing the other day, there's the kathak dancers have like teams of musicians, and those guys are dedicated to doing that, and they often don't sphere out and do other things except for maybe playing solo once in a while. So a guy who's like a full-time kathak accompanist on the tabla, if you don't see him playing a lot of ghazals, or you don't see him accompanying vocalists, because playing for kathak and playing for a vocalist are very different things, but they're all subjects of the tabla. Now, as far as respect is concerned, I don't know. There are taboos about things. I think for one, it's the fact that as a tabla player, when you're playing with a dancer, and I've questioned this myself, and I'd love to know your thoughts, Saberi, on this. The way the musicians sit on the stage? Yeah. Like a band, and then there's a tabla player at the far end, and then there's a vocalist and a sitarist and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's not to me, because like all the tabla players that I have studied with and the ones I've looked up to are amazing kathak accompanists, and they've done it and they still do it. But I think certain people feel like we're not like it's the dancer and then it's the musicians kind of thing, because we're kind of at the side of the stage, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this has come up many times with me, at least in conversation with a lot of tabla players or just musicians in general. And there's only one thing I can think about. I might be wrong, but this is just my opinion on it. With dance, you need as much space
it's a visual
as possible. It's a visual thing. It's not just somebody sitting with a sitar, and so the tabla player can sit directly next to that artist and play. Dance needs a lot of space. And also, I feel like now, just to, if I may also address your question, Mohanish, I feel that tabla players make a lot of excuses when it comes to dance. But when it comes to music, those same excuses don't apply. So a lot of tabla players, when it comes to respect, don't really care if their picture isn't on a poster with a very big sitar or sarod player. But as soon as a kathak dancer, wants you to sit in the traditional, for lack of a better word, way of sitting on stage, that's suddenly a respect issue. But you never stand up for your respect when your photo isn't even on the poster. Why are you suddenly telling me I don't want to sit here when I'm a dancer and I need that space? So if respect is a concern, it should be a concern everywhere and not just with a dancer, one. Two, it is also very much a dancer's fault. Dancers have treated tabla players badly. I have seen it happen. I have heard that it's happened many times. I don't want to generalize, but it does happen. It really does happen. Dancers tell tabla players, you can't play this like this. You have to play exactly like this. You have to play the hatti here, otherwise I won't understand what you're playing. All of this happens a lot. But to dancers, I would say, well, you should be strong enough in your own talim and you should be confident in your own dance that you don't have to have the tabla player play the hatti there to understand what he's playing. because you should already know what you're dancing, regardless of what that, the tabla player is there to enhance your dance, to beautify it, and of course to make it, and I think to make it more attractive, we need tabla players. So A, we need to respect them, and B, we also need to give them the space for creativity. You cannot put them in a box and be like, tum mere saath aise hi bajaoge. Like, this can't happen. This attitude, we need to lose that attitude as Kathak dancers, A. And then coming back to the first point.
Applies to everything. I mean, that applies to a lot.
Everything. But because we're talking about Kathak especially here, I would say that because I see that a lot. And going back to the first point, Mohanish, tabla players, they get disrespected by musicians across the board. But suddenly when it comes to dance, it's like, why should I sit on the side? And it's like, you're not even put on posters by some artists. Why don't you speak up to them first before,
Well, that may be a brand thing. I feel like names on and sitting on stage with somebody and sharing the light. I think it's just like, you're put in a band and it looks, I feel like a lot of people, I don't care about that, like I said, because first of all, if I don't
think anyone should.
True. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is actually true, Mohanish, about vocal accompanists being more respected, because as a Kathak accompanist, I get to showcase myself to a huge degree. I mean, the utan happens in the beginning of the concert, and that's my solo, and that's how it starts. Maybe after a vandana or whatever, depending, but I still have huge seconds of showing my stuff as a tabla player, whereas with a vocalist,
but that's how you think about it. Unfortunately, most tabla players don't. I at least this is how. Well, I don't know if there are other tabla players watching. Please comment, because I don't just want to generalize on people.
No, I mean,
I would love to know what other people think.
I love playing with vocals as well, and that is because I'm in love with the music. And when I'm playing with a vocalist, I would never do extra things. I've been criticized for not playing with even with Pandit Jasraj. People have come up to me and said, "Why didn't you play anything?" And it was like, dude, because this is how it's played.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what the art form is. It's like, yeah, but you're up on stage, people are listening to you. I was like, no, people are not listening to me, people are listening to the whole thing. And I would never, I love his music so much, I love this music so much, I would just never do anything to disturb it. And anybody who is up there on stage to be seen or to show something off is there for the wrong reason. I mean, the focus has to be on the music and not what you're capable of doing. It's like what Michelangelo said, Lord, free me of myself so I can serve you. It's the we who get in the way with
and
expression.
I mean, it's just mad that when it comes to dance, people are, and this is the thing, like what Mohanish said about respect, and I see it happening. As much as people want to be like, oh no, this problem doesn't exist, it really does. A lot of tabla players who play with dance face this problem. Once they play with dance, they're not called to play with vocal, or they're not called to play with instrumental music. And that's a really sad thing. And I can't answer that question. I don't know. I think it's a really massive topic. You'd have to get a lot of artists speaking about it, giving their opinions to kind of form a...
my 2 cents on this is that as a tabla player, I think you have to make an effort to prove yourself. Like, I've played extensively with Kathak dancers, and I've never had this problem. I've also played with Pandit Jasraj, and he's never discriminated against me because I play with dance, because I've never let the two things blend in. And I've seen, this is also true, I've seen a lot of tabla players who do play with dancers tend to like start losing their subtlety and their expression in terms of like modulation. They use a lot of open chatis and bakhawaj baj, nachkar baj stuff, and you really have to keep those aesthetics very separate. If you're like, I've played so much with like qawwali, and that's a completely different, very power driven kind of thing. But when you say vocal music, qawwali is vocal music, and so is khayal, and so is ghazal. but the tabla playing associated with these three things are so worlds apart. So I don't think, maybe maybe tabla players like also tend to like go towards job security because we don't have that. And so if I have like one dancer that I'm accompanying, I'm going to prioritize that dancer so I keep getting hired, and I will stop paying as much attention to developing my relationships with instrument players and with vocalists and with music of other genres to do fusion stuff. I think you have to make an equal amount of effort as a tabla player. I feel like, and not just musically, but also socially, at on a PR level, on your communication skills. As a kathak dance accompanist, you have opportunities to play a lot of things, and the whole thing is driven by you. But you have to understand, when you're accompanying vocals, you are just an anchor, and there's very few moments where you can spark out and sort of say something, but you have to keep that in mind. Like, you can't bring your kathak accompanying persona into the vocal concert and then pound that
completely
thing
different temperaments for each thing that you accompany or you play with. We'll take this last question because we've gone over an hour already, and I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it at all. But
I could go 4 hours, man. Like,
I know. Girish Jaram says, hasn't the fact that Zakirji, Kumarji, and Indoji have played with dance broken the misconceptions about playing with dance? Shows versatility and flexibility. I would just like to say just like one point on that. Sure. It should have broken misconceptions. Yes, definitely. But no, I don't think it has. Because, well, clearly we're having this conversation and it hasn't. And of course, there are tabla players who are very interested in playing with dance. But if I may say so,
I'm one of them.
Yes, you are one of them. But in my generation, I'm yet to see tabla players who are very interested in playing with dance. And I'm just going to put it out there because I haven't experienced it. I have a lot of tabla player friends, and most of them are not interested in playing with dance. And I'm putting it out there right now, they're not.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think it's about the interest, like the first time I remember I spoke to you, one of the first things I said to you is that I want to play with you, man. Like, and I don't care if I like how you dance and if I like what you do. I don't have any problems about saying that I want to do this. Like the first time I saw the Cut the Crap, I messaged you and said, "Yo, let's do this together," right?
Oh, wow! You know what? The fact that you just said that you messaged me, this is something that people don't do. People don't want to say that they approached somebody. But that's a whole different topic.
Even messaged you. I wrote it on a comment publicly.
Yeah, you did. You wrote it on a comment.
Yeah, and then sneak up in your inbox.
No, and then I messaged you saying, "Hey, when do you want to do this? When do you want to do this thing?" And so I just think, see, these honest conversations is exactly what this is about, and this makes me very happy because then, yay! But thank you everybody for asking questions. There's a lot more on this live. If you want to answer more of these questions, just go through them and do that. Sure. But I just don't want to go over time.
Yeah,
but thanks to we have already 18 minutes over. But thank you to everyone who joined, and thank you for listening to us talk about things that we're very passionate about, and hopefully we've put some things into your mind so that you can question more stuff, because questioning, I think the word for today is questioning. And I think it's important.
That's the word. It's the word.
I
something which is endorsing or in support of what you're doing with this Cut the Crap conversation. There's no need to take this negatively. We're not trying to bring negativity and bring that onto the plate and destroy the brightness and the greatness that is associated with this music. It's just this music is so great. This dance and music art form that we have in classical is so great, and it's so.
That's why we're in it, really. That's why we're in it, and that's why we care so much about it, to speak about it for so long.
Yeah, we can't let these little creepers get into it and spoil things for us. What I'm saying. I've seen just one more point I'd like to add.
Please do.
Close. That is that I've seen in a lot of concert venues when I used to go to like a lot of concerts. people listen to concerts and then they come outside and they criticize. And I feel like they go to concerts so that they can criticize. And
To criticize.
that's a little sad. Like if I don't like somebody's playing, I won't go there. Like, why should I go there, waste my evening, and then come outside and then bitch about it? Like, that makes no sense.
I mean, I just think that if that keeps happening, that's a bad thing. Like if every single time you go to a concert, you come out and you're only you're only saying the negative things, then that's detrimental to a lot of things. That's bad for unity
It's general
between
attitude.
artists
Very much
and
in
just
Kolkata.
attitude.
No, I haven't seen as many concerts outside Kolkata as I have here, but just like this, oh, he couldn't play this right, and that note wasn't blah blah blah. Like, why don't you pick about 3 good things to say about this artist? Like, and if not, then leave. I mean, if you're so bored and if you're like so unsatisfied, just go home and listen to whatever it is you like.
Yeah.
Who's stopping you? I mean, you've already wasted your money. Why waste more time? Cut your losses.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. And before we
having me on this, man, it was great. It was great, absolutely.
But
Pleasure.
before we end this discussion, I just want to ask you, to increase more unity between us artists and this community, can you just name a few people who you really watch, like who you're watching right now and who you think are doing a great job in this community? They can be dancers, they can be musicians, they can be tabla players, instrumentalists, people who you think are doing a great job and who people who are watching now should go and check out. So
tons of people. I mean, for those of you who are watching from my page, check out Saberi's stuff, man. This girl is like off the wall. And Ishan is playing amazing tabla. Ishan Ghosh. Umesh is playing really well. A lot of young guys are playing. I mean, I'm not even getting into like the Niladri Kumars and that. We already know that they are. Abhishek Malik, sitar player, incredible sitar player. He plays with Bikramda, and he plays Dhamar and Chartal Ki Sawari with as much ease as Teen Tal or whatever. Like, incredible sitar player, really melodious as well. There's the list goes on. Arshad Bhai, Pankaj Bhai on the sarangi. A lot of like, there's no dearth of talent.
The only reason I'm asking, and I keep forgetting to do it, and that's my bad at the end of every discussion, but I want to ask all my guests to name people who they think are doing good jobs, because I think that just increases unity between us, that we're taking each other's name and we're actually saying like, this person is doing a good job and this person is doing a good job.
I'm amazed at the stuff these tabla players are doing, man. These young punks are
I think that's the only way that we will increase positivity and unity between all of us. But thank you for being here, and thank you to everybody who watched. Tomorrow I've got another episode. There's usually a day gap in between, but I've got one tomorrow, and it's with Indrayud Majumdar, so please tune in, and it's at 10 p.m. India time, so there's a bit of a time.
Indrayud's another one, of course.
So Indrayud is coming tomorrow, and we're going to speak about Swar Samrat Festival and kind of all the logistics that go on behind that, and how to choose the artists, and that kind of the organizational perspective. So that'll be an interesting chat as well. So please join in tomorrow at 10 p.m. India and 5:30 p.m. UK time. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. And thank you very much for being with us. Thank you so much. It's been a great chat, and I hope that people
absolutely my pleasure. We have to do this again. And we have to perform together, mainly.
Yes, we shall for sure. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.